Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters. I am your host, Dane Waters, and we have a very special guest today, a fellow American, Ejike Okpa. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Um, Ejike ran for ran for mayor of Dallas, which, listen, I am a Washington Redskins fan, so the Dallas Cowboys was definitely not my favorite team, but Dallas is a good town, so I commend you for that.
Well, thank you, thank you. Big D is where the big things happen.
Yeah, well, that's probably true. So let's talk about what's happening because I think the reason we want to have this conversation with you is, there's a lot going on around the world, and
Yeah.
a lot of people talk about what do Americans think. So I'm going to take it piece by piece here. So, as far as you're concerned, how do you think Americans feel about the conflict between Iran and Israel, and do they believe that America should have gotten involved?
Well, America has never unanimously agreed on anything. So you're going to have people on, you know, what I call the 535 club members, which is the Congress, House members and Senate, which is the beginning of a whole lot of things. They don't agree on anything. And then, of course, you come into the general public, you have Jewish, you have Iranian Americans, you have everybody who is here. So they're always going to take sides. Some of my Iranian friends love the idea. They want that Ayatollah to leave. Some other people say, oh, this is too aggressive. So the point is that if we are looking for 100% support, we're not going to get it. But, the sentiment is that we need to do something. Sometimes you have to be on the, offensive, instead of defensive. And I think what Trump has done is an offensive thing, warning to say, hey, Iran, if you don't do what we think you're supposed to do, this is just a taste of what could happen to you. Good or bad, he's put them on notice.
Well, I agree with that. But what do you think about, there's bombing the nuclear facilities? I mean, I think pretty much as I said in my monologue, I think the whole world agrees, except for the Iranians, of course, that Iran should not possess nuclear weapons. We have too many nuclear weapons in this world as it is. But Trump is now talking about regime change. I mean, what do you think? Do you think many Americans believe that is for one thing for us to stop a nuclear, the nuclear program in Iran? Do you think people, I know there's no consensus, but do you think people and you personally think that we should push for regime change in Iran?
Well, I think we should put for a change that brings Iran into what I consider a reasonable member of Committee of Nations. I think where I have disagreement with Iran is that they want to wipe out Israel. No matter what it is that you disagree with another country, when you start making those sort of threats, I'm going to wipe out another country, and you are building a weapon that can enable you to do it, then you're putting yourself on a position to be attacked or to be dealt with. There are other countries that have nuclear weapons. India has it, Pakistan has it, but they have never said we're going to wipe out the other person. So I think Iran, shot itself on the foot by making that threat, and then that's what has exposed them to Israel wanting to deal with them, and America being a good supporter of Israel wanting to support in that action. So if Iran said, hey, we're going to pull out of this and we're just going to do a nuclear thing just to support what we are doing domestically, not to attack somebody else, I think the world will welcome them. But as long as they start to be a rogue nation and exposing themselves to what they think their strength is, and at the same time, look at how they got wiped out. How can it be they are a strong nation? America got into that country and hit their three targets without them knowing. So that crippled their defenses, and they don't have any air force because the airplanes they have for their air force have been crippled because the sensitive materials have been removed, so they can't fly them.
I agree. I think it definitely proves that certain sanctions that America and the world has had against Iran has been paying off to prepare for the conflict that's happening and making it. Listen, no war is ever easy, but it's made it easier for the Israelis to control the airspace and to control the area militarily. But as far as America is concerned, I mean, I'm just going to ask you this question. I mean, how do you feel about America's foreign policy these days? Do you think that we are doing what we should do just globally, and then we're going to come back to Iran and Israel, or do you think that we need to do a better job of being more involved globally?
Well, America cannot afford to be the policeman of the world. I mean, we have our own domestic challenges, but when it's necessary and when it's due, we're going to step in. America is one country. I have lived here since I left Nigeria. I will not live in China. I won't live in UK. I won't live in Russia. I wouldn't even live in Canada. So America is one responsive country, but you have to cultivate a relationship with them that shows, hey, look, I want a partner I can work with. You don't have to always agree with you. Just like, when we are married, we don't always agree with our spouse. It doesn't mean we go into divorce or we go to destroy each other. So America is doing what it does best, and that is manifest destiny, Monroe Doctrine, and media and everything at their disposal to do what they do. But countries that want the relationship have to be committed to it and have to be sincere about it. Other than that, then you expose yourself to being overlooked and neglected, just like a whole bunch of African countries. Just Nigeria, for instance. Nigeria, has no relationship with America. They claim to be the giant of Africa, but how big a giant are they? Because they don't have an effective presence in American diplomatic policy. All the ambassadors that's ever been sent to Nigeria are career diplomats who don't have any access to the president. And you could see when you don't have that access to the office of the president, you are limited in what you can do. So if you really want to enhance your relationship, you're going to have to elevate your conduct. And so far, again, Nigeria being a native Nigerian, we haven't seen that happen. So America is doing what America does, and I support it because, when I took that oath of citizenship 30 years ago, I said, hey, this is my country of choice, better
Well, that's
than
very
my
good.
country of birth.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and I applaud your efforts and what you've done in the United States. And as far as President Trump, do you believe that him getting involved in Iran is consistent with his campaign promises, or do you think that he's kind of teetering, going against his campaign promises in regard to getting involved in the Middle East?
Well, campaign is one thing. Then when you sit down at that resolute desk in the White House, is something else because every day is a different thing. So you are not tied to your campaign promises, but at least if it gives you a guide as to what it is you got to do. If Iran has, taken the notice Trump has, given them and reached out to them, let's talk, let's do this. I don't think it would have happened. But, as the chief executive of the country, he has to do what he did, good or bad. At least now, the world is watching to see what happens in the next 24, 48, 72 hours. As long as Iran, reassesses his position and they come back, there's always room for diplomacy. No permanent enemies, no permanent friends. You just have to recognize where you are and embrace opportunity to do better for your country. If Iran is going to spend a bunch of their resources on nuclear processes instead of focusing on enhancing the life of their citizens, I think they're on the wrong priority list. Because a lot of Iranians are suffering and a lot of Iranians are complaining. But because they live in a suppressed, stifling country, they have to keep quiet and deal with whatever it is they have to deal with.
Let me ask you, so what is the difference between Trump agreeing to get involved in the Middle East versus him pulling back and supporting Ukraine? What do you think is the difference and why one is different than the other?
Well, it's juggling the ball. The Russia-Ukraine thing is ongoing. Yeah, I don't think we have had any serious issues going on there. But when you look at Russia and Israel, America will always rally for Israel. And so when Israel, comes to America, they're going to get more attention than anything else. And I think it's because of that relationship that is enabled Trump to act fast. And again, the the Ukraine-Russia thing is not off the table, but it's not, when we say in economics, the scale of preference, and you have to juggle it number one, number two, number three, and all of these numbers change based on circumstances.
Like they're in Dallas. I mean, Texas is a red state. I mean, by the way, is Dallas? Would you consider Dallas red or blue?
Dallas is blue. That is the city of Dallas. Okay.
Yes.
So we have the city of Dallas and we have Dallas County. So in the city of Dallas is majority blue. Uh, but in the Dallas County, when you start going to other cities, majority of it are, red. like Richardson and some other cities surrounding Dallas. Myself, I'm a Republican by choice. I don't have anything against the Democrats, but growing up in Nigeria and being an Igbo guy, I prefer the elephant to the donkey. Because an Igbo man, if you want to get praise, they call you Enyi, and that means elephant. So I can't come to America and become a Democrat. It's just going to, go
Yeah.
against my natural upbringing.
Well, listen, I've been a lifelong Republican as well. I mean, so I have my differences with President Trump, of course, but I worked for John McCain. I've worked for every presidential candidate since Ronald Reagan. So my blood runs deep as far as red as well. But um, let's take this over to Nigeria, for example. You were making a point earlier about Nigeria, the population, and why doesn't it have an influence. So do you think that Nigeria as a country should exercise more influence on what's happening around the world?
Of course, I mean Nigeria is Nigeria is the largest or the most populous black nation in the world, and then even if Nigeria cannot influence a lot of the West African, the African continent, why don't they be an influence on the ECOWAS community? Because ECOWAS is the largest, regional bloc in Africa, 15 countries, but Nigeria hasn't done anything that anybody is going to say. They haven't really seized the opportunity of being they are just big, but they have no qualitative way of using their size to do anything differently. I've met all of those presidents. I've met Obasanjo, I've met Jonathan, and I've had conversation with them. I said it's not just going around and being your excellency. I said, what is excellent about your excellency? What have you done? What have you done to really earn the title of your excellency? And they usually look at me. I said, Nigeria has no water system. You live in Lagos, they have no sewer system. Nigeria is one nation that doesn't even have a national carrier. And then you look at the Naira. When I left Nigeria in the late 80s, one Naira almost gave you $2. So fast forward, 38 years now, 1 million Naira is only
Yeah.
$650. And then Nigerians go around and beat their chest. And then I remember one time when I recruited Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, World Bank this, World Bank that. What did she do? She couldn't even stabilize the currency. And remember, Dane, in 1970, 2006 or something, Nigeria made the highest revenue in oil, and that was $72 billion. You would have thought if they were very good at managing the economy, the Naira would have been stabilized by now. Naira would have been heading back towards what it was back in the 80s. Buhari came in there and sold them what we call lemon. He's going to do 1-to-1. But Buhari cannot even do 5 times 5. If you ask Buhari 5 times 5, he's probably going to ask somebody, what is the answer? So these are the sort of people that have come out to be president of Nigeria, and then you have this celebration around them. Nigeria is a tribal nation, and tribal people don't build successful nations. It is in America. We have 580 something Native American tribes, and they don't mingle. They don't come together for anything. They just want to worship the moon and the sun and the river and the rock. But when it comes to productivity, that's what matters. So how is the Nigerian economy? How has Nigeria produced in order to help its own people? You look at the budget of Nigeria, it's less than $32 billion. 70% of that is from oil, and Nigerians did nothing for oil to be in the ground. They did nothing. They just happened to have found it. But here it is. Only 30% of that budget are produced from some other sources. So 200 and something million people only producing less than $10 billion for their life. Anybody who holds a degree in economics in Nigeria and say they are economic somebody, just laugh at them because they didn't go to school. They didn't go to school. So all I'm just saying is that the role of Nigeria is like that. If the president we migrate above the tribal nature. When you go to Nigerian National Assembly, it's not a national assembly, it's a tribal council. You could sit in there and point everyone who comes from every tribe because either they are wearing red cap or they are wearing the Yoruba type or the Hausa tribe. That's not what you do to promote unity in a country. By now, they shouldn't be appearing tribal men or women. They should be appearing like Nigeria. So back to your question, this may be a long answer to it, but Nigeria is squandering the opportunity to be a respectable nation. And since Nigeria is a member of OPEC, is the poorest nation of all oil producing countries in the world based on per capita income. Go look at it. Nigeria is the poorest.
I agree. I agree. We have to leave here in a second, but I agree. I mean, one benefit, I mean, of the Israeli-Iran conflict is that the price of oil is going to increase, and so therefore the revenue that Nigeria gets is going to increase. And the question is what they're going to do with the money. I fundamentally agree that there needs to be some very hard changes in Nigeria, especially as its population grows. I mean, it has a place in this world, in the global community, and it needs to exercise that and do more to show its strength and power. Definitely does.
But then, oil revenue is relevant for small countries. When your population runs into the triple digits like Nigeria, you don't have to rely on oil. You don't have to rely on oil. You have
Well, you
to
don't
go to
have to
other.
rely on it. I agree you don't have to rely on it, but you still, it's revenue. And the point is, you know, I've been to Nigeria. You grew up in Nigeria. We all understand that, but they're not using the revenue correctly. I mean, there's so much poverty in the country. There's so much corruption in the country. There's so much. I mean, they're also losing billions of dollars every year, you know, from their oil revenue because of corruption and because of people stealing. So, you know, I mean, this conversation is supposed to be about Israel and Iran, but the reality is, let me ask you this last question in closing. The world is heading into a bad place, in my opinion. And every country who's a democratic country needs to speak up and be part of the solution. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that. But you know, I mean, where do you speak up? You speak up at UN. You know, when I think in August or September there'll be a UN General Assembly. But when all those 54, the African contingent is the largest group in the member nations of UN. But what do they do? Who is that? Who stands up for Africa? Is it Tinubu? Is it the guy Zuma in South Africa? Is that his name, Zuma, or the guy in Kenya? You know, who does that? They all just show up there like kids, you know, and they get behind the podium and say whatever it is they said. Nobody pays attention. You have to be very, very relevant in the world political landscape in order for you to be taken seriously. When you want a relationship, you have to be very deliberate and intentional. No, I don't want to deal with you, but doesn't mean I'm rejecting you. You don't marry anybody that shows up. You have to have a preference, and African leaders don't have preferences, and that's why everybody shows up and screws them. Look, I mean, for instance, I know this has nothing to do with
Yeah,
anything.
well, we got to go here. But let me just ask you. Let's just go back real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let's go back to the Israeli-Iran conflict. In your opinion, I got like 30 seconds here. In your opinion, what is going to be the outcome of the Israeli-Iran conflict?
Actually, in my opinion, without having any magic wand, I think they're going to want to talk. I don't think either side wants this thing to go beyond what it has gone. And I think in the next few months or weeks, there will be some serious conversation. If as long as Iran goes out and says we're not here to destroy Israel, we may not act like Israel, but we're not going to wipe them. I think that will be the beginning of wisdom.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with you. And listen, I really appreciate your time. And I want to reinforce one thing you said is that we're heading into global conflict all over the world. Every single democratic loving country needs to speak up, and they just can't sit aside. And just like Nigeria with its population, every country needs to exercise its right to participate in trying to solve the world's problems. And I think Nigeria can do more. Anyway, thank you, sir, for joining us today. We're going to take a quick break, and hopefully you're back on the show again some other time. Welcome
Thank you,
to
Dan.
Around the World with Dane Waters, and we'll take a quick break and come right back. Thanks.